begin this morning with the hot topic of designer babies. Have you heard that phrase? A top agency just declaring that it is ethically acceptable to design your baby. And that has a whole lot of folks raising eyebrows this morning. That, among other headlines, making the rounds. And here to help me discuss it all, please welcome NBC's own Craig Melvin, Jenna Hager, and Jacob Soboroff. Okay. So designer baby. Have you all heard that term, designer baby? Right, designer baby.
Of course.
It's when a human embryo is genetically modified, and a bioethics think tank in the UK has just the bioethics think tank, just releasing a new report giving this the green light, saying that editing the DNA of a human embryo, sperm or egg, is ethically acceptable and it's morally permissible under certain circumstances. And the question is, slippery slope or not.
Yes.
Some parents say this is good if you want to prevent certain diseases that are detectable in the embryo. Mm-hmm. And others say there is a fine line between that and, well, I wanted to have blonde hair and I wanted to have blue eyes. And that's what's acceptable to me.
Yes.
I was just thinking it might be ethically acceptable, morally permissible, but it is very weird. I mean, does anybody else think it's extremely strange? And for me, I would like to have a child, not a robot. And I understand if you want to protect...
They're with you.
If you want to protect your children from health issues, fair enough.
Yes.
But I mean, to give them blonde hair, blue eyes, green ears, whatever, and it's a little weird.
Or to go to Harvard. I mean, where does it stop? And I think the other thing is there should be things that we leave up to God, to the universe.
But can I ask you, what about, because the argument for it, I think everybody understands we're on dicey ground when we get into hair color, eye color, appearance. But they're talking about if you can see that this embryo, like if you do IVF and you have an embryo that has cystic fibrosis is the example they use, which can be fatal at a very young age for most children. Would you genetically modify? Is it okay to genetically modify that embryo to take that disease out of it?
I mean, I think that the most important phrase in the study, with the last 3 words, under certain circumstances.
Yes.
I think that when you start to talk about diseases, genetic diseases like that, I think that parents probably should have the right to make that choice. But you could argue that parents have the right to make that choice now as well. I just think that when you start getting into messing around with, like you said, God's creations, nothing good really comes from it.
But you can already do that, okay? So you can already, if you have an embryo, right now they have the technology where if you have an embryo in the Petri dish, they can test it to see if it's genetically okay. And they can tell if it's not. And then you can choose to discard the embryo. Now this is a different bridge, though. This is like, you don't have to discard it.
You can
you can, quote, fix it.
Yeah.
So that the disease is gone.
I want my kids just as screwed up as they are.
I want mine just as average. Perfectly average.
My parents got a pretty screwed up kid in me, and I think they're quite happy about it at this point.
I don't know.
What do you think?
I think if I had the chance to save my child from years of a debilitating disease by one needle prick in a Petri dish, I would do it.
Of course, let's not run away from science. Science is a good thing, especially if it's going to save lives. I mean, that's the ultimate thing. Is it going to save a life, make a life better, make the quality of life better? Then, of course, it's a yes. But if you're going to make an uber weird baby, why? Well, no,
or if you're going to make all kids look the same.
Well, already people are doing this with respect to sex of the baby.
Oh, yes.
You can tell if the embryo is a girl or a boy.
Yes.
And I wouldn't do that either.
No,
I wouldn't do that.
Somebody said to me, don't you want to have a boy? You could do IVF. And if I don't need IVF, I mean, I'm glad it exists for those people that need it. I have friends that it has provided such blessings to. But if I don't need it, I'm not going to play God and create a boy. Because what, God forbid, if something happened later, I would always blame myself.
And it just feels like like if you're seeing these embryos or your doctor's seeing like 4 embryos in a Petri dish and you're like, I want a boy.
Yeah.
Then the doctor it's one thing to randomly choose or to choose the embryo that looks the healthiest. It's a different thing for him to reject the girls.
Yeah, by the way, the girls are awesome.
Now you're really getting into dicey territory, right? I don't know. But this is the way of the future.
It is.
This is the way of the future.
This is just the beginning. We didn't even find out what we were having, either time, because my wife and I, we were just like, there are very few good surprises left in life.
One amazing moment. That must have been just an amazing moment.
Although I should know that in the delivery room, I was like cheering on a boy. And then she gave me a boy. And the second time
We
I
were
took
lucky
a girl.
because we found out with our first child, who was a boy. We found out with our second child, who was a girl. And so we got the experience in our third child of not finding out because it was, we didn't care.
way.
We had both.
Yeah.
And I must tell you, I didn't enjoy the pregnancy more or less, knowing or not knowing. It's all good. You got
I
a baby
enjoyed
in
the
there. Great
pregnancy
things
more
are
not
happening.
knowing.
Did you? Yeah, is that
He
right?
ate a lot of ice cream.
Did you get the sympathetic pregnancy, with your wife, like Doug did? Like he was like, oh, I'm also exhausted. I'm like,
Totally.
oh, please.
Oh, I was very, very exhausted. I was asking for foot massages.
For me.
Yeah.
All right, I've got to ask you about this. News broke this week that there is only one Blockbuster left in America.
Saw that.
R.I.P.
There were you remember Blockbuster stores, right?
Yes.
And there's only one left in America. It's in Bend, Oregon. Tourists are flocking there to get selfies with the sign. They still have IBM computers running on floppy disks
Yes. Oh my
inside of this
gosh.
store. And it's really the end of an era.
It's like
That's
a
why Blockbuster went
museum.
out of business.
Yes.
It's like a museum to old dinosaurs. We were cleaning out our cabinets, and Henry brought out his old CD collection, which he refuses to get rid of, my husband. And Mila was like, "What is that?" And it made my heart sink because I loved my first CD.
VHS tapes. You guys have VHS?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, of
I do
course.
too. I still
We
find-
had a beta. Remember the beta? Right? I'm really
I
dating
don't.
myself now.
Yeah.
I remember the Blockbuster theme song, like the commercial. You remember that?
No.
Blockbuster video. Ah, what a difference. I'm not the only one that remembers that. We were big Blockbuster fans. The Blockbuster was on Broad River Road, and on Friday nights we would go. and
Totally.
You would get two and you get one free, and I would always try
Yeah.
to sneak like an R-rated movie.
What
Oh,
candy would
really?
you buy? What candy would you buy? Get the sour gummy straws?
We were
weren't
too
allowed-
poor for candy.
We weren't allowed the candy either.
I just feel like it's you look back at sort of what has gone away and like in the 90s and what we don't have maps anymore, right? Because we have GPS. We don't have
Yeah.
landlines anymore because we all have cell phones. And it's like what would you bring back? Like would you keep the Blockbuster store? For me, I would bring back the encyclopedias. Because even though you can Google anything, there's some sort of a joy of being able to alphabetically pull a volume and just see what's in there. Like an actual hardcore book.
What would you bring back? What would you guys bring
I would
back?
bring back the landline and the
The
call
landline,
waiting
yes.
because there was
Call
something
waiting.
so empowering to be like,
landlines are
1
still
minute.
around.
Is there no longer call waiting?
I don't know. I don't use a landline. But do people use landlines?
I do. Yeah.
You guys have landlines?
Can I tell you,
I know my phone number.
I have one of the princess phones next to my bed.
What's a princess phone?
It's like it looks like a banana almost, and it's got the cord, and it's
A rotary
got the
phone?
no, it's got the press dial, but it's from the 90s. I had to order it online because I'm so annoyed with today's phones.
Who do you talk to on that thing?
Everybody. I don't
called me on
I
that
don't like
phone.
cordless. I can handle an iPhone, but I don't like the cordless phones. They don't sound right. It sounds like there's too much distance between you and the other person. I like my princess phone.
Do you have you guys ever use typewriters anymore?
No.
I love typewriters. My dad is obsessed. He collects typewriters. There's 37 typewriters.
Oh,
and I sit at
cool.
home. The sound and the feel of typing out on that typewriter and actually writing a note to somebody, it's almost as good as writing by hand.
Basically, we're all nerds.
Yeah, right. And can I tell you,
Or Luddites.
on that same front, one of the things that was great about growing up in the 70s was the drive-in theater.
Yes.
And here's good news. There are still drive-in movie theaters in almost every state. There are 330 of these drive-in theaters still across the country. Unfortunately, if you live in Alaska, Delaware, Hawaii, Louisiana, or North Dakota, you're out of luck. But if you're in any state other than that, you're in luck. So good news.
Yes.
There's a longing for nostalgia, I think, in this country.
For
I do.
sure.
Because these things are they're just the devil.
Too invasive.
And for making out while you're watching the movie.
Is that what went on with Megyn
No,
Kelly?
Megyn
you're
Kelly,
like, who am I kidding? I've never done that in my life. But hope springs
you
eternal.
should.
Hope springs eternal now that I'm married. All right, when we come back, parents behaving badly at their children's sports games. Have you seen it? It's so irritating, isn't it? Have you been that parent? Mm-mm. Because you're about to get publicly shamed. One referee is on it. We'll pick it up there after the break.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.